Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about how chronic stress and anxiety triggers hair loss. Today we have an expert with us. Stay connected. This is the Hair Wire. And welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Hair Wire, the place where you, my friends, get hair smart. I'm your host, Sergio Cardona, alongside with Carrie Jared. And today we have a special guest, Karen Armstrong. Karen, how you doing? How you doing, Carrie?
I'm doing great.
Nice to have you on our show. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Carrie, what's happening on your neck of the woods?
I'm, getting prepared for winter here. So, doing the little stresses around the house, but, getting the things you need to done with harvesting the garden and everything ready so you don't have mice in the house with, especially where we live. So, yeah, that's pretty much the stress on my plate right now.
Yeah. Hey, we want to send a shout out to Bisan. She's not going to be with us today. She's preparing for the storm over there in Florida. And again, our thoughts and prayer to our people in Florida. And it's funny that we're talking about stress and anxiety, and a day where Floridians are about to be hit with a major hurricane. Now, this is a major cause of stress. I mean, getting prepared before a storm and then dealing with the aftermath of a storm, that's a stress and anxiety and then some. And we know of course about the potential for PTSD, and of course about the trauma that can lead to many horrible things in lives. And of course, we only pray to God that things go smoothly and that no loss of life will happen during this storm. So, Florida, we're praying with you guys. So today we're going to talk about hair loss, and of course about hair loss triggered by anxiety and stress. Now, I know that a lot of you guys, you get anxiety just by losing hair. But what about when you already when you start having anxiety and then causing hair loss? Those are two different major subjects, but they kind of look like the same. Carrie, what's your take on this subject? Because we see a lot of our clients, a lot of our patients coming in and asking, we're losing our hair, we're so stressed out, and even more stress, more hair loss. What's happening? Am I going to get better? Am I going to be able to keep my hair? What can I do?
Yeah, well, common often in the salon, when we do see our trichology clients, especially dealing with hair loss or scalp issues, majority of the time it is caused by stress. And especially in epigenetics, we're trained to kind of analyze where the area of stress is coming from. Intake stress, emotional stress, everyday stress, you name it. And it's deeper than that. And a lot of times people will be like, well, I'm not stressed, because they're so used to living a certain way, creating this chronic stress that it becomes almost part of them, which in turns has an effect too to cause health issues, particularly where we specialize in is hair and scalp health. And so it's really important to understand and bring that to the surface, because there is no one quick pill fix for hair loss and scalp issues. It's getting to the root of the cause of the hair loss and where it's stemming from. And with being there many various types of different hair type losses and scalp issues, there's not a pill for all. And it's finding out what that is. And chronic stress is a quite common one, especially where we are in North America, where chronic stress is the norm. But that's not good for our body. And so, I was really excited to bring in this special guest today, because she has a different perspective on it and helps you kind of reevaluate it. Yeah. Now, what about you? How do you find it in your chair, in your space?
Oh my gosh. You're asking me? No, a lot of people, they come into the clinic, so stressed out. I even mentioned one time that this lady came into the clinic and she was kicking and screaming, and she was so frustrated about her hair loss. And, of course, it took us by surprise. My team at the front desk, they were like, what can I do with this? And I'm like, okay, let her walk in. I'll talk to her. Let's see what's going on. And she was a nice lady though, but at the time she was so stressed out, and so flustered about her hair loss, and she wanted it to stop right then and there. And of course, we know that we cannot do that, even if we wish, even if we wanted to. But there's a process to go through. But understanding, of course, what are the stresses, what are the circumstances that are beneath, that are below that are the culprit of what's causing that hair loss. We want to treat that, and by treating that, we finally get that hair loss under control and get the shedding control, and then of course start getting that hair growth back again. But it is quite the process, and we need to understand how do we actually really manage stress. And this is what we got Karen Armstrong here for. She's the founder of Find Peace Now. Karen, welcome to the show. Now, Karen, walk us through what it is that you do at Find Peace Now, so the people can understand what can you do for them. Because
Yes.
people are going to be talking about you, and people they definitely going to be contacting you after this, because everyone is stressed out. I'm stressed out. we need to get those emotions back in place, because unfortunately, they get the best of us sometimes, and of course, our hair suffers because of it. So walk us through what do you do first, Karen? Then we will be talking more about how to manage stress.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this and to share with your listeners the work that I do. When I work with people, I work predominantly with coaching and a modality called brainworking recursive therapy. I'm also certified in other modalities like hypnosis, master hypnosis, Reiki, as well as access bars. However, over the many years that I've been working with people, I've really honed in on an approach that is the quickest, most effective, it's logical, it's practical, cause and effect. It gets the job done. So those are the main things I do. So I've created my own method of working with people. It's called the Find Peace Now method. And I specialize in stress and anxiety, as well as hopelessness, depression. That's where it gets to on a prolonged period of time. So when I work with clients, what are the issues I work with? Everything. People are suffering. When you are stressed out, when you are anxious, there are many things going on in your life. There's relationship issues. Often people have trauma from the past that's unresolved. They're not unable to perform, in their jobs. They have parenting, their children are acting up. There's many, many different things that happen in a person's life when they're experiencing high levels of stress and anxiety. So basically, when I work with individuals, I help them uncover what is actually going on and understand it needs to make sense. Often clients will be like, well, that just makes sense. Or this is like common sense. I feel like I should know this, but we don't. And that's why it's so important, instead of just getting tips and tools of what to do, in the moment, really what you got to do is pull back, gain a full perspective, understand it, so you can make profound changes at the root level so that you prevent what's going on. So I guess I'm getting into more of the details of what I do, but so people who are suffering, stressed out, anxious, for a year and a half, I specialized in working with referrals from disability management companies where individuals are off work for stress leave. It really doesn't matter what is going on in your life. If you're stressed out, if you're anxious, I help you understand what is causing it and what specifically you can do to overcome it.
Now, I wanted to ask you, because you're talking about when we are conscious about our own stress, but what about when we are not so conscious about it? Because a lot of people, they might say, well, I'm not stressed. And for instance, in my line of work, when I take hair samples, I can understand that there is stress, but sometimes, clients may not acknowledge that they're actually experiencing stress. And for them, sometimes it's very hard to admit that they're even going through stress in life. And it is that, if we do not acknowledge, how am I going to be able to treat something that I'm not even acknowledging that there is? So in that sense, how do you manage those? And, do they come to you knowing that I'm here because someone told me to come here, but I don't think I need your help?
Well, most people who come to me know they need help. So they may not feel they're stressed, but they have some problem. They have weight issue, they have money issue, they have hair loss, they have something going on that they want to get rid of it. And we know that the cause is stress. So I love that you asked that question, because that's actually what I specialize in. So coaching is generally at a conscious level. You know, identify issues. You can look for limiting beliefs. You create action steps. You're held accountable. You move forward. You do these things, but that's not what's causing the problem. The problem is at that root level. It's at the subconscious, unconscious mind. And so how do you help people who don't feel they don't have stress? It's not that they don't have stress. They don't have the awareness of it. So like Carrie said, it's like they become accustomed to it. Like it's like a fish in water. What happens, a fish is born in water, and what happens when you pull it out? So it doesn't know what water is, because it's always around. So it's the same thing with stress, and it builds up over time. But that's your new norm. That's your baseline. And so often I'll say to people, think about it. So those are a bit of an exception where they have it, but don't think they do. But often there are people who have a lot of stressors in life, and they function. They're happy, they're healthy, they're productive, they're doing well. And there's others that are completely shut down or suffering, and maybe they don't realize they're stressed, but they're suffering. So there's two ends of the spectrum. And I always ask, what is the difference? Why can some people have this level of stress and be fine, yet these people are having all these problems? And nobody has the answer.
Yeah. It's incredible. You mentioned that because, there's people who are able to deal with so much. And yes, you have a group of people who, very little, and it's all hell breaks loose. So
exactly.
Yeah. Why is that, by the way?
Exactly. And it's going to make sense. That's why I'm saying you need to understand the big picture before going in and doing the work. And the work's at a level, the root level, like that's going to clear these things up. So what it comes down to is 3 skills, which when I work with my clients, they develop these skills through using the 5 Peace Now method. So the first one is conscious awareness. You can't change what you're not aware of. So the people who think I don't have stress, they're not aware that it's happening to their body, so they're not able to effectively deal with it. The second one is emotional regulation, that emotional intelligence. You feel the stress, you feel the anxiety, you feel the anger, you feel the loneliness, whatever's going on, but you're in control of it, which most people aren't. They feel something, react. It's like a cat chasing a laser, and then it builds up, and then you get the shutdown. And then the final skill is resilience, growth mindset. So as humans, we are wired to look at something as it is and create meaning and judgment. That's how our brain works. So this is happening, which sucks, which means da, 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 da. And it just creates all this stress. Where alternatively, what you want to do is retrain your mind where something's happening in life, you don't like it, it sucks. You pull back, and the first thing you do is ask, can I control this, yes or no? Because the more you focus and obsess over something you can't control, the more stress you're going to experience over that situation. If it's happening and you can't control it, you need to be able to discern that and focus on what you can control. Because otherwise, you're just going to make the problem worse and worse. The more stressed you are, the less likely you're going to be able to sleep. Your connectability goes down. Your relationships are impacted. All your emotional eating, spending, addictions flare up. Like everything goes to the wayside when your nervous system is stressed out. So when you're aware, when you are in control, and you're able to effectively discern and move forward, you find the eye of the storm. So that is the difference between someone who has the storm going around them and they are fine, and other people are completely impacted, like in an adverse way or shut down. We can't change the storm. Yeah. I guess I don't know if this is a good or bad example today. It's the one I always use. So I apologize.
I say it's accurate because people are going through particularly a storm, and they need to find themselves, that there are solutions and there are ways to actually manage their stress. And I like that you bring it, even though it may seem like inappropriate to talk about a storm. Yes, I think it's most appropriate to talk about a storm. Now, I have a lot of people that, for instance, and we were mentioning about this in the beginning, they're going through hair loss. They become stressed about it. They understand that there are things that they need to work on, and yet they lag and they digress and they hold back and they don't do what they need to do in order to manage their stress. I particularly have this lady, and she has kids, and she has this terrible insomnia. Like, she only sleeps about an hour a day, something like that. And she goes by her day, she works, and she's so stressed out. And she knows she has to do something about it, but she's unable to. She feels like she's freeze, like she's stuck. She understands that there's a situation, she's aware of it, but doesn't, I don't know, either she doesn't have the tools or the motivation, or something is blocking her, or something inside of her is blocking it from to moving forward. Now, what's happening into people's minds, that even though they are seeing something that it's happening to them, and they know that they need to do something, and they might even know what it is that they need to do, why they don't do it? Why is it so hard to take that step forward, to relieve, to release, to actually be happy, find peace?
To find peace now. Okay, another great question. I love your questions. So why does she consciously know what needs to be done, but yet she's unable to do it? You use the word freeze a couple times.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the stress response. So when someone has all these stressors, they're going to be in the stress response. The stress response is fight, flight, freeze. I'm sure most people have heard of it. Now, your nervous system, let's imagine there's just an on and off switch. It doesn't work that simple, but let's just say it does. So you're either in the healthy functioning, part of your nervous system, or you're in the stress response. So when you're in the stress response, there's a lot of things that happen mentally, emotionally, and physically. So you're now stressed out, and a lot of things change chemically in your body. There's a lot of, think about your cognitive ability. So let's put it into perspective. There's a bear in the room. So the stress response was made for us for imminent danger. We evolved with it to protect us from imminent danger. However, even the frontline workers I work with, they at times are in imminent danger, but most of their life they're not. Most people are never in imminent danger, yet the stress response is being triggered. So I'll talk about why next, but let's just talk about the impact of that. So once you're in the stress response, the fight, flight, freeze, all of these things change. So you're not able to, the kind of catchphrase is rest, digest, repair, reproduce. So you talked about insomnia. So again, think about it. There's a bear in the room. You have 9 seconds to live. Are you going to have a nap? Are you going to be able to digest your food or process it properly so you're not retaining water and weight, eliminating properly? No. Repair. So a lot of people have injury, or even, the treatments that they use for the hair loss or other medical issues may be impacted by the state of their nervous system, their body's natural ability to heal. And then you have the reproduce. And that's not just procreation, that's connecting with yourself, connecting with others. When there's a bear in the room, you're not able to sit down and be present and enjoy your kids or time with a spouse or time in nature. You're in danger. So your cognitive ability changes when your, emotional center is hijacked. The connection to the prefrontal cortex is severed, or, at least impaired. So you're not able to think straight. You're not able to focus, articulate. You're going to look for something to feel better right away. Your body's going to drive you, and that's where the addictions flare up, and the eating flares up, and the spending flares up. So that's where I'm saying, like, most of the issues people have in life are, there's common sense things of what they need to do to change them. But like you've noted with your question, is that it's one thing to know it. It's another thing to physically be able to do it. And that's why to effectively, permanently, profoundly change your life, and it doesn't have to take that long, it has to start with nervous system regulation. So that is what the Find Peace Now method is really focused around, is helping people understand how they're getting into that stress response, or why they're always in it, and how to get out of it. Because when you're out of it and you are present and you're aware and you're able to connect and you're able to do these, move forward, and you're able to communicate properly and sleep and have energy, whatever action you need to take isn't that hard. But when you're paralyzed, unable to just sit down and focus or do it because you're just so stressed out, any action you take, people call me or reach out in the intro, I want to be held accountable. I want to coach. I want to be held accountable. And I'm like, well, I don't do that. I'm not going to hold you accountable. What I'm going to do is help you regulate your nervous system, develop your awareness, your emotional intelligence, and your resilience so that you can go on and just live your life and do what you need to do and want to do. So I don't know if you have questions with that so far, but I got more to share. Can I keep sharing, or I can keep sharing? Okay. Okay. So let's just say for now, the vast majority, if not all, problems are being impacted by the state of your nervous system. So we want the nervous system to be calm. The stress response is what freaks it out. And so we want to prevent that. However, most of us are not in imminent danger. So if you're not in imminent danger and you're in the stress response, what's causing that?
I like where you're going. I like where you're going, how to make people think about their stress situation and how to get them out of the bubble, if we may, to start moving forward, because it's incredible how fear and how our emotions are able to hold us and hold us to the point, that I know what I need to be doing, but I'm not doing it. I just pick up a hot pan instead of losing it and dropping it. I keep holding it. Why am I keep holding it?
I like that example. And you actually answered my question indirectly. So you said the fear and the emotions.
Yeah.
That's the answer, but people don't have it. You need it like this. When you're stressed, when there's a bear in the room, you need to know, boom, now. So remember I said you need conscious awareness and emotional regulation. Yeah. To regulate your emotion, you have to be aware in that moment. It needs to be simple. It needs to be clear. And so the answer is your emotional state. So when you're lying on a beach or in your backyard on a chair and you don't have, you're just relaxed, you're not in the stress response. It's not until something happens that causes these emotions. Maybe you're angry, maybe you're lonely, maybe you're afraid, maybe you feel not good enough. Like there's a lot of different emotions. It's not just stress, and that cause the stress. So now we got to back it up. So most, if not all, the problems in life are caused or are, enhanced by an unregulated nervous system. The emotional state, negative emotions can trigger that stress response. What causes emotion?
Yeah, sometimes things that happen in the past, whatever, from parents' issues, so many things, that can be that trigger, and whatever reminded me of it just presented itself right then and there, and that is causing for me to react a certain way, feel these emotions, and not thinking straight when I should.
So, and that is the common answer that people give me. It'll be specific things that trigger the emotion, but there's actually something in the middle of that. And that is where you take your power back. That is where profound change happens.
Wow.
And the answer is your thoughts. So again, going back to that beach chair, you're laying there, you don't have a thought in your mind. How are you going to feel? You're just paying attention to the sea and the warmth and all these wonderful things going on. How do you think you're going to feel?
I'm feeling good. I want to stay feeling good.
Yeah. And then you think of winning $20 million and all of the things you could do with $20 million, and you start playing that in your mind. How do you think you're going to feel?
Powerful.
Now imagine, one of your clients is suing you, and you're going to lose your business, and then you're going to lose your house, and then you're going to lose your partner, and then you're going to have all these terrible things happen to you. And you played that out in your mind. How would you feel?
Hopeless.
Yeah, probably shocked too, because it'll never happen. Yeah. But do you see, nothing changed in the physical world. Nothing changed. Your emotional state and the state of your nervous system changed dramatically based off of what you were thinking and how vivid you were making those thoughts and how long you were thinking about them. So this is what people need to understand. There is a place. A lot of your stressors you can't control. Can you control the economy? Can you control the politics? Can you control the war? Can you control what your teenage kid is doing? Like, can you control the aging process? Like, yeah, there's some things you could do with the parenting and the aging, but predominantly, can you control the hair loss in this moment? Can you make your hair stop losing your hair today? No. But the more you think about it, the more you're going to get stressed about it, the more you're going to have it. It's like, a snowball effect. So this is what people need. They'll be like, I have all these traumas. Most people do. Most people have incredible trauma, just you don't know about it. There are things in day-to-day life. If you're an adult and you have kids and you have a job and you have a house and you have a partner or you live alone, like there's so many things just being alive that are stressful. The older you get, the more responsibility you have. And think about stress too. There's a cumulative effect. It's like
True.
investments, right? Like over time, you get that, interest on interest. Well, think about stress. If we're in a room together and I poked you on the arm, you would probably be like, oh, hey, what's up? But what if I did it like 20 times? If I was like, you'd be like, stop it, get away from me, don't touch me. What do you want? And if I sat there for 24 hours and did it straight, you would lose your mind and completely shut down.
Yeah.
Right? So this is why, when people are hopeless, when they're depressed, they need to understand that it's all these things that built up. To overcome this, you got to identify the root causes and know how to effectively deal with them. So let's back up and look at what we just did here. All of these problems in life are either caused or enhanced by the unregulated nervous system. Because you're not in imminent danger, it's your emotional state. However, your emotions are being created not by the things that you have no power over, but actually your thoughts of those things. If you're aging and you're like, oh, well, it's just what happens. If your child's a brat and you're like, oh, well, kids are brats. You know what I mean? Like these things, if you just, oh, well, none of it bothered you, you wouldn't have a problem. Now, the reality is it does bother you and it should bother you. And some of the things that bother you, you can take action, and you need to take action, because the last thing you want to do is wake up every day and have to manage every thought that you're having. It's not even possible. So think about it. You wake up and you live your life and you have all these environments. You have home, you have family, you might have children or a partner or friends or a job. So every single day you go to these same environments. Now, to the extent there are triggers in these environments or things that trigger past traumas, you, by living your life, are automatically going to be in the stress response. You're automatically going to have this cumulative effect unless something changes. So that's why it's so important not only to know your thoughts create how you feel, which impacts your nervous system, which impacts these issues and what you need to do to fix them. What you want to do is be very strategical and tactical, and that's what the Find Peace Now method is. I developed a protocol where you're able to identify all of the triggers in your life, things from the past that still bother you today, things today that trigger you, and all of those what ifs about the future. If anyone listening, if you guys catastrophize and are hypervigilant, right there, those are constant like jolts to the nervous system. As soon as you go, what if, like even with hair loss, what if I lose all my hair? What if my hair never comes back? That is some of the most like terrifying thoughts you can have, which increases the stress to your nervous system. So maybe people don't have general stress, but the hair loss, I don't know if there's if there's situations where stress isn't the cause, where there could be medical, but now your catastrophizing and hypervigilance of it is compounding with that. Now it is stress induced, or maybe it started medical, but because you're so worried about it and focused on it, it now became stress.
Yes.
So you don't know until you learn how to properly raise your awareness, take back your control, and work from that place of resilience.
I love it. I love it. What you're talking about, and I hope our audience, are listening and it's resonating, because you have to be mindful of this part of our lives. Working and managing stress, whether it was a stressful situation, the trigger, or it becomes a trigger after something else happens that could be related to hair loss. But we need to find out what it is and start working with it. Now, what are some of the recommendations that you can give people? Because unfortunately, people, they like to try just about anything before they actually start working with it.
Yeah.
And what I mean is, people like to pop pills. They're ready to pop a pill. They're ready to smoke a joint. They're ready, to do something chemical to their brains, rather than just actually work on it. And for those who had maybe bad experiences with a psychologist, with a psychiatrist, what are some of the alternatives that they can use today?
Okay. So I have one more thing I got to share that's really, really important.
Sure.
Do we have time? Can I share something else, and then I'll tell you what you just asked me? Okay, great. So we talked about stressors and how that causes a stress response. And I talked about all of the like kind of obvious ones, but there's actually covert ones. And after working with hundreds of people over these years, I've actually realized that a lot of stress people have is anxiety, and that anxiety actually isn't anxiety. And that's why it never goes away.
Okay.
Because emotions, yeah, exactly. Because stress can be any kind of emotion,
I'm
right?
interested. I'm interested.
I know, it's amazing.
Both are like perking up. Okay.
It's inadequacy. I'm not good enough. So the concept, the inner critic, that voice inside of your head that tells you you're not good enough. So you're not pretty enough, you're not rich enough, you're not successful enough, you're not a good enough mom, you're not a good enough partner, all of these things. Not enough, not enough. It's the voice that insults your hair that's turning gray, your, body changes, whenever you make a mistake, it just gives you, it's an assault on you. It's that self-talk. So that self-talk is actually just conditioned thought patterns. And the crazy thing is your thoughts create how you feel, which impact all right? So this is such a covert cause of stress, and often it is the majority. I've actually had clients where it was 100% the contributing factor of their lifelong anxiety and depression. And so, like you said, taking pills, things like that, I'm not, some people, that I'm not even going to touch on what people choose to do. However, when you have tools or things that you want to work forever at the root level, it has to be on your thoughts, on your triggers, and making sure you take care of this covert one. So not only is it the self-judgment and the conditioned thought patterns, the more you think them, the more you're going to think them. The more you think them, the stronger they're going to be part of your life. But what happens is when you're like that, other patterns of self-induced stress form. So think about perfectionism. Think about worrying what other people think. Think about people pleasing. How about the inability to say no or put down boundaries? Comparing yourself to others. I already talked about being hypervigilant, going, what could go wrong? All those what ifs. Catastrophizing, going to that worst case scenario in your mind. So these things alone are creating an incredible amount of stress to your nervous system, and nobody's doing it but you. And it goes back to not having that conscious awareness and emotional regulation. When you're not aware that this is going on and how to fix it, you can't. And so what happens is it's always in the background and it's impacting everything you do. So a lot of people believe they're not good enough. Some people think they're completely worthless. Do you know how to form a belief?
Well, actually, you have to fill your mind with a thought, basically with an idea, and that will grow into the process. But
yes, repetition of thought. That's it. So it doesn't mean it's true. It means you thought it enough time that it feels true to you. And think how powerful thoughts are. Like think religion, politics, people, they're at war, they're fighting, they're killing over a belief system. But how can there only be just one belief system? Think of somebody who, suffers from an eating disorder and they're starving themselves and they're skin and bones and they're on life support and they still think that they're overweight. So if you never thought you weren't good enough, you wouldn't believe it today. But the more you thought it, the faster you formed a belief. And if today this is going on in any of you guys listening, you need to stop. So when it comes back to what are the like tips and tools, I remember I had a client who was a doctor several years ago, and this individual had said that, you know, when patients come in, they recommend, like, really believe in holistic approach, and they recommend, like, you know, breath work and proper sleep hygiene and connecting with others and proper nutrition and all those things that make sense, what you were talking about before, right? And then if that doesn't effectively work, then they explore the medication route. And one of the things I said was, but do you realize all of those things on that list, when you're in the stress response, like anxiety is stress, right? You're going to be in the stress response, the fight, flight, freeze. You can't rest, digest, repair, reproduce. And everything that people are given as tips and tools to do have something to do with the things that if you're in a stressed enough response, you're going to physically not be able to do them. They're going to help in that moment, but they're not going to change what's going on inside of you. In order to change what's going on inside of you, you need to figure it out. So you need to, and I have, like I said, with the Find Peace Now method, a very customized way, a cause and effect approach to identifying what these triggers are. And as you effectively go through them and work through the major ones, what you do is you develop the awareness, the emotional control, and the resilience. So by the time you're done doing the work, what happened is your brain actually changes. Like, clients often are 8 or 9 out of 10 level stress when they start working with me. And at the end of 4 weeks, they usually grade themselves at a 2 or 3, sometimes a 4. And so, and the majority of what we work on in that first 4 weeks is understanding what's causing it. And then we start with usually the inner criticism and the own personal patterns. So when you spend a couple weeks working on those things, you can take your stress level down dramatically. So what can I offer somebody now is a recommendation, what they can do to work on. What they would need to do is raise their awareness of what they're thinking, and then in that moment, be able to stop it. So is this going to change their life completely? No. Unfortunately, if you want to do that, you're probably going to have to do the Find Peace Now method. Like, it's a process. It's something that builds on itself weekly, but generally only takes as little as 4 weeks. Sweet spot is generally 8 weeks. But for now, what you can do is realize in that moment that the more you think about whatever is bothering you, the more it's going to stress your nervous system. So, you know, you could bring in something like stop, cancel. Some people like that. Really logical people like, oh, I'm just thinking about that again.
Tools like talismans, for example, with the jewelry I make, I use a lot of jewelry to retrain the brain, like to take your mind off of the negative, focus on this instead. So like where people use sticky notes everywhere, or they may have a rock with an intention set on it in their pockets. When they are going down that alley, they can bring themselves back. Instead of thinking about that negativity, they could bring themselves back to retrain the brain to be in a positive mindset. Like, what's your thought on that sort of process?
Oh, 100%. So what you're doing in that moment is you're becoming aware that you're triggered, and you're doing something to regulate. So you're doing mindfulness. When you now are paying attention to something else, you're not in your head. Like, you can only pay attention to 7 to 9 items and at any one given time. And when you're super stressed, it might be as little as 1 or 2. So when you're hyper focused on this, if you can redirect your attention to something, especially using your 5 senses, bringing in mindfulness, what that's going to do is help regulate your nervous system. So the more you do that, the more you train your brain. Your brain is it's repetition. That's it. Yeah. It's your thought and behavioral patterns repeated enough that they became automatic. Think about learning to drive a car or a bike. You had to consciously think about it. You had to pay attention. But when you did it enough times, it dropped to the automatic part of your mind. You just hop on the bike. You just hop in the car. Yeah. So this is where, you got to pick something, repeat it. It's going to help. However, you really do got to develop the skill, work on your major triggers, which is generally that inner criticism and those self-induced stress patterns of perfectionism and worrying what others think, especially with hair loss. I'm sure a lot of people worry about what other people think and are self-conscious about it. And that alone, if every time you go out, if every time you wake up, if every time you look in the mirror, your thoughts are something that is inadequate, not good enough, not the way I want it to be, you're stressing your nervous system.
I tell that to my clients all the time, is when you think about, and Sergio and Basan, we've talked about this in the past before, is when you think about the negative part about losing the hair and the hair not coming back, you're feeding the negativity.
Yes.
You're encouraging the lack of hair growth happening. So we're always saying, change your thought process, focus on the win on end. And I often use like sports coaches who are always like, focus on the win. And a lot of Olympic winners who win medals always say, I imagine myself winning. So I will tell my clients, imagine yourself with a head full of hair. Imagine yourself with the look that you want. You have to put your mind there to get there. And of course, be realistic. Like if you already have fine hair to begin with, you're not going to have voluminous hair down the road, and unless you use cosmetic solutions. But go back to where it was the best that you remember it for you, and that way you could work towards there. Now, when it comes to as a trichologist, and if you're a trichologist watching this and talking about hair loss and helping clients with hair loss, and we know it's a stress factor, there's quite a few areas of hair loss that are impacted by stress. Androgenetic alopecia, yes, it's a genetic one, but epigenetically, you could prevent that and slow it down. But when you're stressed, you could speed that process up. So maybe you're already predisposed for it, and your ancestors and everybody else, and maybe you're technically going to get it around 50, 60, but now you're stressed in school, your hormones are out of balance, and you're not regulating yourself. You could start the process of the genetic hair loss as early as 18 to 19. So it's being really understanding of how stress affects you today for tomorrow. Telogen effluvium, common one we talk about that all the time. We're in a couple of telogen effluvium support groups. And a lot of that too is stress. And that whole spiral again is nothing's working, I'm doing this, and you're trying everything and throwing everything in the pot and wondering why it's not working. And now you're spending money, you're losing money. You know what? You're feeding the storm again. And so you got to really focus on, where is that stress factor coming from? Is it my intake stress? Is it my emotional stress? And figure that out. And once you figure that out, then you go to use your tools and your specialists to help you correct that. So Karen would be a perfect person to talk to about that, who could help you re-regulate and how to retrain how you process stress and emotions. And then also too, alopecia areata. I have a client that I'm working with right now, common one. That's where you have the patches everywhere. And that's commonly caused by a major trigger or trauma that hasn't been addressed too, that I most often commonly see. And for example, I have this young man, his sister had moved out, his hair grew back, it's been great. Well, his sister, he found out, is moving back in, and guess what happened within 2 weeks? He had a flare up. And now we know that that was the trigger. We had to do detective work. And remember, trichologists, it's not just looking under the microscope. It's being the detective, asking the questions. What happened to you? What is happening to you? And what is going on? And then do the deep work and use your tools with your blood work and everything else. But often you can find it out with the deep questions. And as trichologists, we are trained for that. Use your consultation and your assessments for that as a tool. And just don't be like, okay, here's a pill. Because oftentimes, if it's not solved at the root problem, you're not doing any service. Sergio, do you have anything to say of that?
No, definitely. What I'm thinking right now is, to our fellow trichologists and people who are in service and working with others. By the way, Karen, do you do training for professionals, so they are more adequate at treating their clients, or at least having some of the basics?
Yeah, how to address it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like with parents who want to help their children. I'm like, really? Yeah. You should just go through the process yourself, because everybody needs this work. It's self-mastery work. So yes, it's amazing, life transforming for people who've tried all these other things and nothing worked, who are really suffering and don't think that anything can help them. However, you can still be doing well and do the work and be doing even better. So once you go through it and learn it, it's not hard. None of the things I shared today are hard to share with somebody else, but just hearing it once, hearing it twice, trying it out isn't going to be the same as your own experience. Yeah. When you experience it, you can guide people.
And full disclosure, everyone, I am going to be working with Karen. We have it all booked, ready to go. She's been working with my son. She does profound work. And, there are other versions of Karen out there. It's just finding the one right for you. But Karen is very knowledgeable, and we hope to bring her on as an expert on the hair wire on a regular basis, because her work is so profound, and especially being able to offer her as a tool for hopefully the professional side of our membership, and then as well our public side. But yeah, it's really understanding your stress, you guys. Karen is a great asset and a tool with the knowledge that she has to help you understand and put it in a different perspective.
Yeah, and like I shared, after 4 weeks, people often go from almost that 10 level down well below 5, right? And another profound difference is, like, for instance, a client I just finished 4 sessions with last week. When we met, like, her brain just spins, like it's just constantly firing. And remember what your thoughts create, how you feel, and how you feel impacts. You know what I mean? So she's like, okay, yeah, this all sounds great, but I don't think it's going to work for me. I don't think this can work for me. But the thing is, if you do the work, it's impossible not to work. It really isn't. So at the end of the 4 weeks, she's hardly getting triggered. When she is, it's not that you're not going to get triggered. That's impossible. You're always going to get triggered. The key is recovery time. So some people get triggered and it lasts days, weeks, months, years, a lifetime. The key is when you get triggered to become aware and in control, where it's lasting seconds to minutes. So the jolt to your nervous system is a heck of a lot less than what it used to be. And at the end of the 4 weeks, she just couldn't believe it. She's like, how does this even happen? And I said, exactly. But that's why you got to work at the root. You got to understand these things. And when you do it, honestly, truly, like I know a lot of different, services out there profess and do some form of transformation, but honestly, truly, this is like sniper type work. Like you're getting in and you're getting that clean shot. You're going right to what is causing the vast majority of what you're experiencing, and you're working at that level. And when you do, it just changes everything. So that's another common thing, is after you work through the inner stuff, what happens is the work trigger, the relationship trigger, the children, like all of these other things are no longer an issue, because a lot of it was you in your head ruminating, second guessing instead of having a conversation. People have a really hard time putting boundaries down. They think boundaries are brick walls and machine guns. No, you're always on the defense. That's stress inducing, having those boundaries. Boundaries should be soft. They should be hearts, love, light, keeping you in. So when you find peace now, your boundary is keeping you in, and it's a no thank you. Somebody is talking about you. I understand that's your perspective. I can agree to disagree. Right now you're being rude. Is that what you're intending? I can tell you're triggered. Furthering this conversation is only going to lead to something that's unproductive. Let's reconvene. That is easy to do when you're aware, in control, working from that growth mindset.
Karen, thank you for coming on. Please, I hope you do come on for future. I know we talked about you possibly coming on for trauma. We also have our friend Kelly as well, who is she does yoga and does a lot of stuff with trauma for telogen and fluvium specifically. We do want you to meet with her as well. But I would love to have you come on here again on like a regular basis, because the world needs this, and people really need to understand, and change starts with the leaders and bringing this information forward. And that's what we're doing here at the Hairwire, is bringing this to the surface and making people aware of it and what to do next. And this is where you go next. So Karen, please, thank you 1,000 times over. I'm so grateful. And yeah, please come again. Now, if you look on the bottom below, you guys, we do have her website, so you could go connect with Karen on her website. And then hopefully from there, we'll figure out when to have you again. And we are, announcement, you guys, we are working on our website. We're moving platforms right now, and our membership, we've found a new platform that's going to better cater everybody, where we'll have experts on a regular basis, where you could check a lot of these recordings for those specific lectures and areas of discussion. And we're going to have a professional side more dedicated to hopefully bringing tools where we can have maybe Karen, hopefully, I'm putting the horse before the carriage, where we might have you come and kind of do a mentorship for the trichologists and how to approach this and what steps to do too. So thank you, Karen, for coming. So grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I hope at the end of the day, something resonates with everybody who listened, and that you have that, that kind of makes sense. That just makes sense. And remember, the more you focus on something, the more you're going to feel it. So even when, if you're the professional working with your client, that would be an area to start discussing with them, is helping them break that focus. And when they do that, they can begin to start taking their power back.
Amen. Amen to that. Karen, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Carrie, amazing. I'm loving our guest. I'm loving our guest. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We hope to see you next week. God bless you all. Till then, bye-bye.